Once again, Barcelona became the setting for a spectacular Formula One drama. The 2025 Spanish Grand Prix featured intense competition, strategic maneuvers, and contentious incidents that will be remembered throughout the season. Oscar Piastri dominated the race, performing like a maestro and widening his lead in the World Championship standings. However, Max Verstappen, the defending champion, had a disappointing race after being penalized for an incident with George Russell, which dropped him to 10th position. Why was Max Verstappen given the penalty? Let's discuss it. And don't forget to press the subscribe button. Piastri performed impressively from the start of the weekend. He secured pole position and went on to achieve a dominant victory on Sunday. When the starting lights went out, he sped away immediately, leaving Lando Norris and Max Verstappen behind. While Norris was involved in an early duel with Verstappen, Piastri created a gap and established a rhythm that no one could match. Although Norris managed to pass Verstappen on lap 13 to secure second place, he never got close enough to put serious pressure on Piastri. For the rest of the race, Piastri managed his tires, maintained his pace, and controlled the race with all the composure of a seasoned world champion. With this, his 5th win in 9 races, Piastri now has a 10-point lead over Norris in the standings, and is increasingly proving himself to be a strong contender for his first world title. Red Bull arrived in Barcelona with one clear objective: to regain their fading dominance. They knew that, in terms of pure pace, the RB20 could not match the blistering speed of the McLarens around the Catalunya circuit. Strategy was therefore the only weapon the team could rely on. Red Bull then opted for a bold and different approach. Max Verstappen was put on a 3-stop strategy, which was a far cry from the 2-stop strategy of his main rivals, Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris. The strategy initially looked promising. Verstappen managed to overtake several drivers and climb up to second place, giving the team great hope. However, everything changed drastically when the safety car came out with just 11 laps remaining. Kimi Antonelli crashed his Mercedes, spun off the track and got stuck in the gravel, forcing all the leading drivers to pit simultaneously. This is where Red Bull's fortunes began to deteriorate. McLaren and Ferrari still had a fresh set of soft tires, which were the ideal choice for the late restart. Red Bull? No. They only had hard tires left. Verstappen was forced to pit and restart on much slower tires in the cold conditions. The result was predictable. Verstappen found himself in a difficult position, surrounded by rivals on soft tires who were attacking aggressively in the closing laps. What had initially looked like a promising strategy had now turned into a nightmare. Red Bull's hopes of winning were instantly dashed. The drama that had been shaking the paddock came to a head at the restart on lap 61. Under immense pressure and with tires starting to wear out, Max Verstappen lost some grip and momentum as he exited the final corner. Charles Leclerc seized the opportunity, speeding off down the main straight and overtaking Verstappen in an intense duel of speed. The two cars even touched, drawing sharp attention from the cameras. However, after reviewing the incident, the stewards decided that it was a racing incident and did not require further action. But the tension was not over yet. A few seconds later, George Russell, lurking behind in his Mercedes, saw his chance. He immediately ambushed Verstappen on the inside of Turn 1, a very daring maneuver. Unfortunately, there was not enough space. The two cars collided, pushing Verstappen off the track and into the runoff area. Although he managed to return to the track in front of Russell, the Red Bull team quickly instructed him to give back the position. Apparently, they wanted to avoid a potential penalty that could have had more serious consequences later in the race. However, Verstappen's response on the team radio was emotional. "What? I was in front. He hit me." John Piero Lambiase, the race engineer who is usually the voice of reason, simply replied, "But that's the rule." Verstappen seemed torn between his competitive instincts and his obligation to obey the team's instructions. He hesitated. Entering Turn 5 on lap 64, Russell tried to pass again, this time around the outside. Verstappen, who appeared to be in the process of regaining the position, slowed for a moment. However, just as Russell caught up with him, Verstappen accelerated. The two cars collided again. Russell nearly lost control and had to fight hard to keep his car on the track. "What the hell?" Russell shouted over his team radio in frustration. "He just hit me." Shortly afterwards, he finally managed to overtake Verstappen and secured 4th place. However, The incident quickly became the subject of heated debate in the paddock. The debate wasn't just about who was right or wrong, but also about the fine line between courage and stubbornness, and between a racing spirit and adherence to the rules. The drama wasn't over, and the fallout from this collision could spill over into future races. The drama erupted just minutes after the checkered flag. With the paddock still buzzing with adrenaline, the stewards delivered a shocking decision: a 10-second time penalty for Max Verstappen. This dropped the reigning world champion from 5th to 10th place, a painful end to the Red Bull driver's troubles. But that wasn't all. Even worse, Verstappen was also given 3 additional penalty points on his super license, bringing his total to 11. And these weren't just numbers. If he were to pick up just one more penalty point before the 30th of June, he would automatically be banned from racing under the FIA's strict rules. The threat was real and hung over his future. In an official statement released shortly after the race, the stewards explained what they considered to be Verstappen's serious violation in detail. Verstappen deliberately slowed down approaching turn 5 to give Russell space, but then accelerated suddenly and caused the collision. This incident is entirely Verstappen's responsibility. George Russell, the victim of the incident, also made sharp comments. In a tone of disappointment and anger, he said, "I was really shocked. It's not a maneuver that should be in Formula One. I feel it was deliberate. I don't know what he was thinking." Meanwhile, Verstappen himself refused to discuss it further. When asked about the incident, he answered briefly and in a cold, tense tone. "Is it important? I'd rather talk about the race as a whole than just one moment." Having been handed a penalty, Max Verstappen could only take home 1 point after finishing in 10th position, a result that was certainly far from what was expected of the defending world champion. Conversely, Nico Hülkenberg delivered an extraordinary performance that stole the public's attention. Starting from 15th position, he managed to secure 5th place for Sauber, an exceptional result and the team's best of the season. Meanwhile, Lewis Hamilton, who had been ahead of George Russell at the start of the race, could only manage to finish 6th. This was a disappointing end to the race for the Mercedes driver, especially given the team's high hopes of being more competitive. Isaac Hadjar and Pierre Gasly, who finished 7th and 8th respectively, delivered solid and consistent performances throughout the race. Fernando Alonso finally scored his first points of the season. The veteran Spanish racer completed his 21-carat St. home race with a positive outcome, ending his long wait to enter the points zone and receiving a warm welcome from the home fans. Following the Spanish Grand Prix, there were significant changes to the Formula One World Championship standings. Oscar Piastri is now in first place with 182 points, just ahead of his teammate Lando Norris in second place with 172 points. Charles Leclerc is in third place with 139 points, while defending champion Max Verstappen is in fourth place with 133 points. Meanwhile, George Russell completes the top 5 with 128 points. The 2025 Spanish Grand Prix is a symbol of the changing dynamics of Formula One. McLaren has become the leading constructor, Piastri is firmly at the top of the standings, and even the usually unflappable Verstappen is under pressure and facing penalties and the threat of a ban. The big question now is whether Max Verstappen's dominance as the reigning champion is over. Or is this just the beginning of a revival for the reigning champion? Let us know what you think in the comments below.